Hi everyone, it's Nicole, and today I'm bringing you my January favorites. So I decided this year that instead of doing like a full monthly wrap up, since I do read so many books in any given month, that I was just going to go over my favorites of the month. And how I break down my favorites is books that are 4.5 and higher. So I'm not going to go over all the 4 stars either, because I do rate a lot of books 4 stars. So like I said, 4.5 and higher. So with Storygraph, you can easily track that now, which is awesome. So I'm going to start with the 4.5 stars first. And this isn't in any kind of particular order. This is just as I'm clicking on 4.5 stars and it's coming up on Storygraph right here for me. The first one is A Psalm of Storms and Silence by Roseanne A. Brown. This is book number 2 in the Song of Wraiths and Ruins series. I believe it's just a duology. It does fairly much end, even though the ending is a little bit open-ended, but it does in fact end. So this continues our story from Malik and Karina. The synopsis or the plot of the first book is that Karina, her mother, who is the queen, dies, and she finds a spell or a ritual to bring her mother back because she doesn't feel like she is ready to rule. So the fact that one of the ingredients for the ritual is the heart of a king, and so she obviously doesn't have a king yet because her father has passed and she is not married. So she decided that she will just make the winner of Solstasia, which is like this event that's going on in her country right now. She'll make the winner, whoever wins, king. So she will have the heart of a king and she'll have everything that she needs to bring her mother back. And one of the players or participants in Solstasia is Malik. He is having his own troubles. He goes to I think it's the capital, I'm not entirely sure, wherever the palace is, to not participate, but to watch the games with his family. He's traveling with his 2 sisters, one older, one is younger. And on their journey there, his younger sister is taken by this ancient evil deity. And he's like, if you want your sister back, you will kill Karina for me. He's like, well, the only way that I could potentially get close enough to kill her is to win Solstasia. You see what the issue is? Yes. She is going to make whoever wins Solstasia king so she can have his heart. And he wants to win Solstasia so he can get close enough to kill her. They both want to kill each other. Okay. So that is the premise of the first book. The second book is after the events of Solstasia. I don't want to spoil anything for you, so I'm not going to. But they're just both dealing with the consequences of what has happened. And Karina is basically on the run, and Malik is falling in the hands of someone you do not trust. Malik feels like he doesn't belong anywhere, and this person can teach him things that he would not get anywhere else. And so he falls into like this really toxic mentor-mentoree relationship. So it seems like they're both on opposite sides, but they love each other. They fell in love in the first book, and even though it seems like they're on opposite sides, they really don't want any harm to come to the other one. And this just really, it wraps up really nicely. I feel like this book was a lot more action-packed than book 1. And even though Karina was getting on my nerves a little bit more in this book than she was in book 1, which is surprising. But I really, really enjoyed this, how they all came together and solved everything. And the open ending, I don't know, it wasn't my favorite. I'm glad that we did kind of have some semblance of an ending, because if it didn't have that kind of last little snippet, if you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. I probably would not have given it a 4.5 if just kind of ended where it did end before we got that little epilogue. But I'm glad we got some closure. That's the word that I'm looking for. Some closure. Even though it's it was kind of like not how I would have pictured it, but it's the closure that we got, and I still really enjoyed it. So I gave this book 4.5 stars. Next book on my 4.5 star list is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This is a book that we talked about and discussed for my book club, the Who Picked This Book Club that we meet every Wednesday. So I will link the full discussion in the cards and in the description box for you. But this book is split into 3 different perspectives, 2 different timelines. The future timeline, the present day, is a woman who is on what is supposed to be her anniversary vacation, but she found out that her husband is cheating on her, so she ended up going alone. And while she is out and about doing like touristy things, she finds a bottle with a bear etched on it, and that kind of just leads her to this kind of adventure, history seeking, because that's kind of like what she went to school for. She was like a historian. She really loves like digging through like people's lives and learning and uncovering truth. So that's basically what she's doing in the present time. And in the past is our 2 perspectives. One is the apothecary that gives poisons to women to give to men who have wronged them. If you found out your husband is cheating on you, or if he like knocks you around a bit and you want to kind of get out of that situation, you go to this apothecary and she gives you a poison that cannot be traced back to her, cannot be traced back to you. When they kind of figure out the reason of death, it looks very natural. And so that is kind of her life. That's what she does. And she does this because she has been wronged in her past. She was in love with someone who was a liar, and she's gone through some very traumatic things. So it kind of shifted her apothecary. She was an apothecary that helped and healed people, but then that trauma kind of shifted and made her into who she is today, or then. And then our last perspective is of I think she's 10 or 12. For some reason, those 2 numbers are coming into my brain. But she meets the apothecary, our little 10-year-old. What is her name? Oh my God. Oh my God. Eliza. Okay. So our little girl, her name is Eliza, and she comes to the apothecary for some poisons on behalf of her mistress, who she works for, because, again, trauma. The husband is not a very good man. He is a pedophile. He has touched Eliza inappropriately, and it doesn't go into fully like explicit detail, like if he's like raped her or not, but that is definitely a trigger: sexual assault, rape of a minor, pedophilia, death, things like that. So that's basically what this book is about. So I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people don't really like the dual timelines, and one timeline is considerably weaker than the other. The present timeline, I mean, I kind of wanted just to get back with our apothecary and Eliza and kind of learning things in real time. But I really enjoyed it. It was, it was very mysterious, very thrilling, kind of dark, but it was really, really solid read. 4.5 stars. And my third and last 4.5 star read was That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. So this is kind of like a fantasy world where there are all kinds of mythological creatures who do exist. We have our main character. Her name is Cinnamon, Sin for short. She works on her spice farm with her parents and siblings. And one night she is coming home from, I guess I don't know if it's every year. Every year they have like the goddess chooses someone to go on this quest to kill the dangerous orcs and demons that the goddess supposedly protects them from. And so she's on her way home from that. She didn't get picked, obviously, but she's on her way home from that, and she gets like accosted by this demon, and she runs back home and she's terrified. This thing is going to kill her. And when the demon steps onto her spice farm and inhales all the spices, mostly cinnamon, he kind of like gets a clear head. You kind of learn that the goddess is not who she says she is, and these demons and orcs and mythological creatures, they're all under a spell from the goddess because she wants to be the deity. She wants to be the goddess. She wants to be the one who is all powerful and like, oh, I'm protecting you. You're welcome. But really she has these creatures under a spell and have them act like that's not how they would act normally. They're not all dangerous and deadly creatures. As you can see with our love interest to Cinnamon, he is a quote unquote demon, but once he wants that spell breaks, because when he smelled this, cinnamon is the key to it. If you smell cinnamon, the spell will break and he's back to his normal self. And he goes on this quest like, I'm going to show everybody who the goddess really is. And you have to go to all 3 of her temples and crush a goblet that is in there. And so Cinnamon's like, you can't really do that, because as soon as you step foot into like the temple, the goddess is going to know it was you and she's going to attack. And he was like, that's actually really smart. You're going to come with me. And so on their adventure, they kind of fall in love, and it was really just fun. It was just a fun time. And I do want to read more of this series, because I believe there is, the series is called Mead Mishaps. And I believe, let me click, sorry, I'm clicking. Yeah, Missile Foe, a Mead Realm Tale. Okay, so this is kind of like another book in that series, but I do want to read that, even though Missile Foe just seems like it would be Christmas. I can still read Christmas. It's fine. It's fine. But I really enjoyed that book. It was a really great time. And the cover is just adorable. So moving on to my 4.75 star ratings, and I only have one book that I rated 4.75, and that is the Tower of Nero, book number 5 in the Trials of Apollo series by Rick Riordan. Bree and I have been doing our Uncle Rick read-along, where we read all of Rick Riordan's books. We did that last year. We just finished Trials of Apollo back in January, so we are moving on to his Presents line. So the Uncle Rick read-along will continue this year, but I will link the discussion of this book in the cards and in the description box for you. This series is actually fantastic. This is my favorite series from Rick Riordan, just because we get the action and adventure, and we get the kind of like, oh, they're on quests and they have to, like the Trials of Apollo. What happens is Zeus kicked Apollo out, and he has to go through these trials to get his godhood back. And while he is kicked out of Olympus, he is not a god anymore. He is human. He's in the body of a 16-year-old boy called Lester Papadopoulos, and he can potentially die, even though it is really hard to kill him. He gets his god strength sometimes, like when he's in dire need. But in this series, you kind of go through those trials with him, and the growth that we see from Apollo is actually fantastic. When I'm talking character redemption, when I'm talking growth, when I'm talking arcs, like when we say that we want characters who go through a redemption arc, this is it. Apollo goes through that arc, because, if you've read Percy Jackson, if you've read anything about, the gods, the Greek gods, these gods can give 2 shits about what happens to mere mortals or the demigods. They have the ability to help and fix situations themselves, but no, they would rather these 13-year-old children, they're demigod children, go on these dangerous ass adventures while they just sit and drink their freaking whatever they drink. What is it called? Ambrosia? Is that what they drink? The drink of the gods. They just want to sit and relax and drink and watch them do all the suffering and hard work and then take freaking credit for it. And that's how Apollo was. Apollo had no issue whatsoever just handing, like, if it's something that he didn't want to do, he's like, hey, human, do this for me. And of course they would, because they want to gain favor with a god. And so being kicked out of Olympus, Apollo is now put in that situation where he is not a god anymore. He is the one that the gods want to go on these dangerous quests and to basically save their sorry asses. And so Apollo kind of realizes, and he has a new respect for humans. You really see that over the series, but it really hits home in this last book. And especially because, spoiler alert, he does get his godly powers back because he succeeds, right? So yeah, he gets his powers back, he turns back into Apollo, and he just realizes that, when he's sitting up in Olympus surrounded by all these gods, that he's just doesn't feel at home anymore. And when he goes back down and visits his friends that he made on these quests, he realizes that he's more at home in the skin of Lester Papadopoulos with these human and demigod children than he could ever be in Olympus. And I just think that's actually really beautiful, and I really enjoyed this. And this, honestly, my opinion, this is the best series that Rick Riordan has written. Moving on to my 5-star reads, I had 2 in January. The first one is Conspiracy in Death by J.D. Robb. This is book number 8 in the In Death series. I have, I did state at the beginning of this year that I wanted to get through this series. I don't know if I'll get through all of them this year, but it is a goal. So the In Death series by J.D. Robb, we follow one protagonist. Her name is Eve Dallas, and she is a detective in the NYPD, and it's not present time, it's futuristic. So that's what I first loved about the series. I had no idea when first going in that it was going to be a futuristic. It's set in like, what's the date? Like 2058. That is the year. So it's slightly when this book was first written, it was way in the future, but nowadays it is slightly into the future. So Eve loves being a cop. She is really one that just genuinely wants to help people and roots for the underdog. And it really hits home in this book because she is trying to solve a murder, which people just want to kind of sweep under the rug. You know, it's like, oh, like it's a homeless person. No one cares like why this person died. And she's like, I care. I care why this person died. It's still a crime, even though it's kind of, they're less desirable. I care that this person died. So she is really, you know, digging. And when she digs and digs and digs, because that's just who Eve is, she finds out that this murder is connected to this murder. And then this murder is connected to this murder going on, you know, back however many years. And people are trying to cover it up. And these people are very powerful, and they try their best just to get Eve off of this case. And at first it comes in kind of like a strongly worded letter to kind of just like, you need to let it go. And then when that doesn't work, they kind of try to scare her off by blowing up the car that she drives. You know, like she's injured, but she wasn't in the car when it blows up. And when that doesn't work, you know, Eve, when she's on a case like that and things are piling up and it's not coincidences, she doesn't believe in coincidences. You know, like someone does not want her on this case, and it just makes her even more tenacious. And she's like a dog with a bone, you know, she will not give up. And so these people are realizing that. And so these people actually kill a cop that she has quote unquote beef with and frame her for it. And while she is under investigation for that murder, she can't have her badge, she can't have her firearm, she is basically suspended until the investigation is solved. So that they basically, it's like, okay, you're not taking the hint. These people are saying like, you are not backing off, even if it's a danger to your own life, you are not backing off. So we're not going to make you a cop anymore. And she was kind of devastated, you know, because she's like, if I'm not a cop, who am I? You know, if I'm not out there protecting these people, who am I? What good am I? Because she does have some trauma in her past where she is in the system and she was one of the forgottens, you know? So she wants to be that person who remembers these people. Of everybody who would just soon as forget about them, she wants to remember them and give them that honor. So she's like, if I'm not a cop, if I'm not helping these people, who am I? So she just spirals into this depression, and her husband Rourke is the one that gets her out of it. He was like, you know, I let you be sad, I let you feel this because it's wrong what they're doing, but you can't stay this way. I need you to get angry, I need you to fight back, because this is not who you are. And she does. She realizes that, you know, she has a husband who's very technologically, like very computer smart. He can hack really anything. So it's like she doesn't necessarily have to be a cop to continue her investigation. And she does it solo. And eventually she clears her name and she gets this investigation solved, and she's back on the force. But this one is just really, I really felt for Eve in this one. It was very intense. It was very, you know, I was feeling all kinds of emotions. And Rourke, honestly, Rourke is just, he is the book husband. You know, he is just, he's perfect. He's perfect. He really, really is. And I'm really enjoying this series as I'm going. So my second and last 5-star read of January is Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. This, I don't think this is gonna be a series. I don't know, I could be wrong. But it's kind of a Little Mermaid retelling mixed with West African gods, goddesses, fantasy, things like that. Definitely check your trigger warnings for this. The author does put it in the very front, so I'm just gonna read them off. Content note. Before you begin reading, please be aware that parts of this book may be triggering for some readers. Skin of the Sea blends 15th century history with fantasy, and there are depictions of violence, enslavement, death, and suicide. So I I really enjoyed this. In this book, our main character, her name is Semidele. She is a mamiwata who is they're mermaids who are tasked with collecting souls and transferring them safely to the afterlife who die at sea. So where she takes these souls, she goes to the island of Imoja, who we find out that created the mamiwata. So when she goes to this island, she becomes quote unquote human again to walk on the island and deposit the soul. When she becomes human, she starts remembering things of her past, and she remembers being human. She remembers her mother, but as soon as she turns back into a mermaid to go back into the ocean, she forgets. And so she doesn't want to forget. So she tries to go back to the island and to be human more often than the other mamiwata do, because she wants to remember. She does not want to forget. And when she was talking to Imoja, she was basically questioning like what she was tasked to do. Like, she's tasked to collect the souls of the dead. And she was like, that is your purpose, no more, no less. So when she is out and about, looking for souls, she comes across a ship and they throw a man overboard, and she goes to collect his soul, but then she realizes he's not dead yet. So she kind of has this crisis where she's like, okay, do I wait for him to die and then collect his soul, or do I save him? And she actually ends up saving him and brings him to the island. And then he's like, I need you to summon Imoja. I need you to get me back to my village where I belong, my family. I need to check on them. And so that kind of just starts this whole adventure. Like, you get into the lore, you get into why Imoja created the mamiwata to begin with. And there's a sinister plot going on. And there's just so many twists and turns and dangers and love, and it's just beautiful. It was a beautiful, beautiful story. I really, really enjoyed it. For my book club, this was our first book that we discussed for the year, and I just thought it was just a really great start to, our book club discussions. So again, I'll link it in the cards in the description box for you. But yeah, it was just really beautiful. And just this cover is just stunning as well. So that's it. So those were my January favorites. If I had to pick a favorite, I would probably go with Skin of the Sea. Skin of the Sea is my favorite book that I read in January. It was just beautiful. So beautiful. Don't forget to like my video if you did. Comment below what were your favorite reads of January. What was your favorite book? I would love to know. If you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought of them in the comments. All my social media links are in the description box below for you. And we'll see you next time, avid readers.